How does one jump from architecture to Star Wars?
My journey into art started as soon as I was born, almost. All my life I have been painting.
Almu Redondo grew up surrounded by art. She started taking art classes at just 6 years old. And even then, she knew this was her path. What she didn't know was that this passion would take her all the way to a galaxy far, far away.
What can we do in Cartoon Saloon as adapting animation in animation Star Wars that has never been done before, and it has a huge visual potential, and instantly we set the force.
Almu first studied architecture, but then she took a leap of faith and switched to film. She took online classes, at the same time she was working as a waitress to pay the bills, and she learned from top artists in the industry. And after building a strong portfolio, the doors started opening. Disney, Universal, Riot Games, and Cartoon Saloon.
For me, the first approach is emotional. I need to understand the tone that we want to have. Like, I can feel one on the script, and also understand which one the director, in this case Paul, they wanted to have.
Today, Almu's work blends various techniques to create visuals that feel like pure emotion. So what does it really mean to tell a story with images? And how did seagulls, wet shoes, and Irish forests help shape the world of Star Wars? Let's find out! Almu, welcome to Riot Animation. It's amazing to have you here. We finally meet in person.
Yes.
That's great. If you can tell us a little bit about your background in general before Cartoon Saloon, and kind of following the beats of the talk, and tell us a little about this journey.
Yeah, so I was originally an architect. I was trained as an architect, so I didn't start straight away in cinema or animation. And my journey into art started as soon as I was born, almost. Like, there is a painting in my family that I cannot walk yet. I think I have like 6 months or something, and I'm already painting, like crawling in the ground. So it was all my life I have always been painting. And then I started training in fine arts since I was 6 years old. They brought me to an academy and they taught me everything, the sculpture, photography, and everything related to art.
How does a 6-year-old kid get into that kind of training? It's very interesting. How did that happen?
It was a lot of work from my mother, to be honest, because I started to paint in school and the teachers were paying attention, like there is something here, you know, because I was super early and I was putting a lot of detail. And apparently, I don't remember this, but I was painting in perspective really early, and that's not common. So I will paint like oranges and they will be like in 3D space and everything. So the teachers encouraged my mother to do something about it. And my mother started bringing me around to all of the art academies in the city, in Pamplona, where I was born and I grew up. And no one will take anyone under 10 years old because, you know, kids were really risky at that age. They could be rascals and destroy everything, so they would not take me. But there was one teacher that looked at me and said, "She looks a sweet girl, so I will give it a chance. So I will have her one day and then decide." And for me, it was, you know, Olympus open, like the sky open, and it was the best thing ever. They had the sculptures in the walls and everybody was painting. It was everybody was with the white dresses. And she said, yes, like I take her. And we developed such an amazing relationship. I always consider her one of my artistic mothers. And throughout all of the time that we were together until I was 18, she taught me everything that you will learn in fine arts. And then when I was 18 years old, I told her, so I want to study fine arts, which academies, universities do you recommend me? And she was like, don't bother, I taught you everything. Because I was always asking her things, and she was giving me books, Renaissance books and Baroque, and I was studying all of that when I was growing up. And for me, it was the best day.
Do you remember that specific day when you went to...
It's a little bit blurry. I think I do. I don't know if then I mistake it with another one, but she just sat me in a table. And at the beginning in this academy, you started copying a set of different mediums that you try slowly. So you start with pastels, the little ones that you blur with your finger because they are the easiest and most manageable. Then you move to watercolor, and then you go to oil painting, and then slowly you stop copying and you start creating your own things with things that photographies and moments in your life or whatever you want to do. But it's really up to everybody. Like, you can just keep asking her different things to do and she will teach you. And it was, I think they just sat me in a table and made me copy something and see how I was behaving mainly, because it is true that then they open up to younger kids and they were running around everywhere, and like all of the paintings were falling over, and I was like, okay, no, back to 10. But I just stayed there.
2 days ago, we went to see a studio where they teach Unreal Engine to little kids. They have a workshop with clay, and they first learned how to model. They need to bake, and they were delivering to the kid. And it was very interesting to hear one of the comments. They said that younger kids, they had to understand it digitally to then translate it into clay. For them, it was easier to grasp the concept from the engine. But there's something as a parent, to encourage a kid early. I think it's one of the best gifts that you can give. I also remember my first written story. I still have it, and I do remember vividly that day when I wrote my first book in kindergarten. And so I wasn't sent to an art school like you to do that. But those memories I think there's something there of a spark that tells you this is your vocation and this is what you're going to do. So now tell us, how was the journey from there to Cartoon Saloon, so we can focus on...
Yeah, so then when I was 18, I studied architectural design because it was something that could be artistic, but also had like a good career and all of these things. And, you know, I was looking at the future like that. And I was anyway interested on building this scenario that people was going to be living in. Like, I really wanted to do cinema, but there wasn't really an industry in Spain at the moment. So I did architectural design. I was working as an architect for 3 years. And then eventually I was working in a museum for Pamplona, in the main cathedral. In the studio, they hired a film director because they wanted the show to be similar, like a film, having the 3-act structure, and we did a color script and all of that. And he was the first person that I met that he was working in cinema. So I asked him, like, how do I get in? And he told me everything about all of the different schools that they exist and all of that. So in that moment, I decided I'm going to make it. Like, I finished my studies, and then I said I'm going to study cinema. So then I gave myself 1 year. I had to finance it with the savings that I had until then, and then work to pay the rent and all of that. You know, working the nights as a waitress. You know, to do something, have the whole day to focus on my studies, and then do something physical just to be active and pay the rent. And I created for myself a program. I was looking in all of the different universities, and in the end I realized that they were slotting you in a very specific industry, and I just wanted to learn about storytelling in general. So I crafted for myself. It was the moment where you could learn online. So schoolism was on, and you can get direct feedback from people from Pixar, Disney, Naughty Dog, DreamWorks, so it was fantastic. And it was very affordable. Like, I could pay that. I couldn't pay maybe a full year.
It's a great program.
It was amazing. So I looked at all of the different industries. I thought, what is the strength of each one of them? And I studied that with them, like design in animation, cinematography in live action, storyboarding in live action.
That was
It was Schoolism and CG Masters Academy, and some individual people in the industry that maybe they were doing it by themselves. So, and then I studied all of that. I was doing it at the same time as my partner. He really focused in visual effects, and he went to the university, but we were living in that city in the south of England, in Bournemouth, because they have the best visual effects university in the whole of Europe and even in the world. Like, it's like a shuttle to go to London. Then in London, there is one of the main visual effects industries. And he was studying that in the university, and at the same time I was studying this. I will go to live drawing, I will go to the lectures on Fridays. And when the time finished, I had a portfolio. So I applied to visual effects, live action, because it was the industry that was there. And I got in and I started to explore. It was a very small studio. There was Outpost Visual Effects, and it was kind of an outlet of people from NPC and Double Negative Frame Store that they were all coming together to do almost the same thing, but in a smaller studio in a smaller town. And they were super grateful and like amazing people, and they embraced me and they taught me so many things. And I was like, can I do storyboard now? Can I do matte painting? Can I do this? And they just kept moving me around, and it was such a huge school. And then eventually, after working in live action, I worked in Aladdin as a storyboarder, in Jason Bourne as matte painter and concept artist, and some others. I discovered animation because I started to do some pitches in animation, stylized shows, and I was blown away by the potential of animation. Like, you can craft every single line on the screen to bring out an emotion. and it was fantastic. So I decided to move into animation. I worked in my portfolio again to do some more stylized things, to learn how to express even more with color and light and textures and all the different mediums. And I met Cartoon Saloon in Annecy. I saw the portfolio, we had the interview, and they told me, "Do you want to come over?" Like, yes, let's go. And we started there, and I started in different shows in development. And then eventually when World Focus kicked in, I moved to World Focus, and that was the beginning of everything. And then I moved to other shows, and we've been working together for so many years now.
So you were already there, and I imagine Lucasfilm approached Cartoon Saloon and to ask you for an episode. Were you part of the early pitches and ideas to explore the show?
Yeah. We were 5 people. Like, it was really, really tiny. It was Paul, Jason and Will, they were writing it. It was the whole process even of the whole project, it was really, really collaborative. You know, we were discussing everything together. And even after we started the short eventually, we were always the teams were really, really small. Like, we were 2 people in visual development, and I was doing visual development and art direction. So it was tiny. There was 1 storyboarder, and so everybody was always in the same room. It was in the pandemic times, so we had a catch up every morning, and everybody was there, even the writers sometimes. So we were building the tree of the story together. It was not like individual outlets of people just doing things, and it was fantastic. So at the beginning, we were all there creating ideas. We were 3 different artists doing the art in general, and we had the writers as well. And we created the pitch very quickly. I think we had like 1.5 months or 2 months, something like that. And we started brainstorming things as well. They had a really good idea for 2 storylines. Then we started exploring that visually, and it just goes hand in hand in animation. The visuals like develop the world building as well, so that affects the writing. And it was a very, very tight process in that time. And yeah, we developed it, and they liked one of them. It was greenlight, and then we moved on to develop the short.
When you presented the pitches to Lucasfilm, how did it look like? Because I imagine, was it like a pitch deck or was it like a synopsis? Can you remember, like, what were the elements that you presented, like the physical, like, you know, the presentation?
Yeah. It was very similar to like many pitches. I think we had a combination of general designs and some story moments, where you always find these key moments, you know, that really sell the story, and they're really, really strong. Like some of the paintings, for example, that I saw of the Force Vision, it was one of those, when we were starting to explore that mythic story inside of the cave, trying to spread that fable tone that we wanted to express with that Iris myth that is translated into the Star Wars universe, with this very specific tone of this mix of melancholy, bittersweetness, but a glint of hope that is both very Iris. We wanted to represent Iris culture, but also it's very Star Wars, you know, it's at the core of it. So it was a very mix. It wasn't many slides, I think maybe 20, something like that, 25. It was mainly about potential and possibilities of us exploring it together.
It's fantastic. It's definitely my favorite in the season. Heart-wrenching, and definitely Star Wars. I was blown away by the fact that, you know, it's so Cartoon Saloon, and at the same time it's so Star Wars, and the blend is just amazing.
Hi, as you've probably noticed, I love Star Wars, which is why I was particularly excited about discovering her work on Visions. But before we get to that, I wanted to quickly invite you to the Riot for Animation Academy. It's a creative community where you'll connect with other passionate storytellers who are all about improving their craft. We write together, learn together, and help each other thrive in the animation industry. When you join, you also get instant access to our short film writing course, where you'll finish your own short film script in just 4 weeks. If you're looking to boost your animation career, join us today at writeforanimation.com/academy. The link is down below. Now, let's get back to Almu.
And I think that you were able to bring a fresh eye also as somebody getting into Ireland and observe it from the outside. You can notice things that maybe they couldn't. You know, it's also a cultural mix that you have a lot of observation. And can you tell us a little bit, how was it? You just moved there very quickly, right?
Yeah. I mean, the process almost started in World Focus, because I moved in And throughout I think it was like 2 or 3 years that I was there working in Wolfwalkers, that was me getting immersed into the Irish culture. And we will do a lot of field trips where we'll go to the forest, and I will go for a forest maybe for a whole weekend, and I will just stay in a little cabin next to the forest and go every day to paint the whole day to really get the feeling of light and how does it really feel, because it was very different from Spain. We were a lot of visual development artists from the Mediterranean, like French or Italian or Spanish, and we came with bright colors and yellows and saturation, and Ross and Tom were like, no, we are in Ireland, yeah, yes, we are in autumn and we have a hint of red, but it's mainly green and gray. I discovered so many shades of gray that I've never thought existed before, and it was a whole process of that. So we will sketch outside a lot, and Ross always said to us, Ross and Tom said that, imagine that your socks are wet. Like, that's the feeling of being in Ireland. And the watercolor medium is perfect for that. So all of those blends, there is always a hint of mist in Ireland in so many moments of the day and in so many seasons. So it really started there. So when we were starting the short, we were building on top of everything that we had discovered before. And almost, I believe the whole team, we worked together in Wolfwalkers, so maybe 80%. Everybody knew everybody. It was really like a small family that we were just continuing on everything that we've done in the previous films.
And tell us a little about this story. I love that with very little dialogue, it's absolutely visual. And we focus on storytelling, and the thing that you tell the story of every line, every decision, visual decision is also storytelling. And I would love to learn about your creative process as a writer to better understand that, because you are able to tell each frame is a story. And what is your approach, and how somebody maybe coming from writing could understand a little more?
For me, in my particular case, a lot of us have different approaches, but for me, the first approach is emotional. I need to understand the tone that we want to have. Like, I can feel one on the script, and also understand which one the director, in this case Paul, they wanted to have. So we were discussing a lot with Paul and Tom, Irish culture, their backgrounds, their upbringing, to really bring out that Irish essence. So I could start to feel like I was a kid, that I was growing up in this place. And this dark fable, the poem of Yates that we've been discussing today, that was a really key definer factor for me to kind of feel something like this is the mood, and this is what the characters are going to feel, and this is what we want the audience to feel. And then I started slowly branching out decisions about shape, language, light and color, even technique. Everything comes out of that. And I look at the scripts, and sometimes there are 2, sometimes 3. In this case, there were 4 main pillars. They were the base for all of the different decisions that they were, branching out after that. Everything was coming from those 4 key things. So
remember, what are those key poles and story moments?
Yeah, for me, the 4 key pillars, they were, it was a family that it was breaking apart for manipulation of the dark side and the Sith order. It was the story of a little kid that he was gaining a personal power. It was in a very oppressive environment, and it was freeing and making a decision for herself for the first time, for better or worse. So, you have that twist later on. The twist at the end, it was a huge defining factor on everything that came before. So all of the design, they were having in mind that everything needed to be twisted big time, and that twist needed to be aspirational for the main character. So she was drawn to that, in comparison to the place that she was coming from. And the last one was the express visually the force, because it was one of the key main potentials that we were thinking even in the pitch process. What can we do in Cartoon Saloon as adapting animation in animation Star Wars that has never been done before, and it has a huge visual potential? And instantly we said the force, make the force visual. We started exploring that earlier on, and we landed into ink, using ink as a medium, because it can flow, it can be very gentle, like the light side of the force, but then it can become really, really hard. And Paul brought the reference of Rolf Steffen, and he was a huge influence for us. That was one of the main pillars as well. So that defined a lot of the creative decisions, and then some of the other things, they were like back engineering from there.
Something that I love about seeing artists in action is that there is no moment where you're not absorbing things. And then we'll switch to a more somber moment, which is that final look in the short film. It's just amazing. That moment is, everything is amazing, but it gets better and better. I really loved what you created. But first, the sequel, which is funny.
Yeah, the sequel was a really funny thing that happened. So we were just in the middle of designing the Sith. I just moved to Sydney. So one day I was having lunch in a park and I was eating a pizza. And seagulls are everywhere in Sydney, and one of them tried to steal my pizza. And when I was looking at those eyes, I thought that those were Sith eyes, because they were so injected in red blood and they were so really, really small people. And I thought, this is our Sith. So I took some pictures and I sent it to Paul the next day, and he was like, I love it. So the color of the Sith, it just came from there, so yeah.
I will never watch the short film the same way. And tell us a little more about that final, so iconic within the short film, that moment, that look, and at what point it was clear to you that was going to be the ending?
We did a lot of iterations. We tried many different things, like going really wide and epic to have this ending of Star Wars, a feeling of adventure. One of the days we were brainstorming different things, and someone mentioned the reference of the Godfather. That closing shot where he closes the door on front of her. So it really feels that that relationship is completely broken at that moment. In our short, it meant a glimpse of hope, because it was that moment that we needed. All of the events that happened prior, there are a huge conflict in between these two kids, but he does mention don't look back, but just at the very last minute, she thinks that maybe this is not the right decision, and she looks back. So that was giving that hint of hope, and closing on her really, really close, it felt right because it was very intimate. So it was really her story, and we were just with her in that moment that those doors were closing and they were snapping the relationship between her and her family, her friends, and that was really powerful. So yeah, when we saw it in the animatic and then I designed all of the colors, we thought, that's it, this is the solution.
Beautiful. Now the last question is, how can we convince Lucasfilm to do a feature film?
Yeah. Let's try. Yeah,
it's so amazing. There's so much subtext. What are some visual elements that help tell the story, especially visually, without relying on dialogue, and things that you always look for in good visual development?
Every single decision, it was coming from what is the emotional core of the moment. So you can see I planned really carefully the whole process of the shape language, following the emotional evolution of her and how she goes from conflict, oppressive, then we have this bonding, beautiful moment of bonding together and love, and it's really the heart of the story in that moment. Then we go really twisted and when we dive into the dark side, hallucination, and then we go kind of very angelic and beautiful and salvation. So there are so many moments where the subtext and the text go hand in hand, so there is not so much going underneath. There was a lot going on with the decision of the little kid. So she's constantly throughout the film thinking if she's going to leave or not. There is this inner conflict inside of her. Paul always wanted to have her having this kid that she's keeping a secret from her friends, and we only find out at the end what really is, and that was the call for that. So I designed this bubble of light where it was represented the bonding between the little kids and the family feeling. So every time that she's thinking of staying in the dialogue, they're laughing together, she's inside of the bubble of light. But whenever she's thinking of leaving, she's out of that. So that's a structure that comes in the undercurrent. When they get into the cave, she has already made a decision at the entrance by praying to the medal that she's going to make it. So she's always outside of the bubble of light. At the very end, when the stranger comes down, she brings back the bubble of light because she's going towards the family that she thinks she wants without realizing that she already had one. So this is one of the examples that is underneath. But I think the biggest change was at the very end, because we have these visuals of salvation, purity, which is the image that she's projecting outside. We are extending the hand to the audience a little bit because we are sharing a secret together as fans of Star Wars and knowing the universe and the lore, that in reality, those visuals, those sensations that we are having, they are not so, because we understand by little details the color of the red and certain specific details on her face and the acting of the strange woman. We know who she really is, but the kids don't. So we are sharing that interesting moment. And Paul and I, we always work on making sure that it was never too angelical and never too evil. So even if the visuals at some points they get very beautiful, very golden and very angelical, in the music Paul was putting a little knife. So you are always unsettled, you never know what is the real nature of this. And slowly we are dropping little details in the conversation that they have. So at the end there is no doubt of what is happening, but she doesn't know. So it's the whole tragedy of she has this ticket out, it's her salvation, but it's not an honest salvation.
There's so much of Anakin and the essence of Star Wars, which I loved. What is that excites you most in terms of the technique and the craft, and what are some new adventures coming your way?
I'm really fascinated by the huge potential the 2D animation has, like the kind of things that we were doing in the short, when we were able to explore, when you become really abstract and the world almost dissipates, we don't pretend to be in real life anymore, and the whole frame just becomes an emotion, like we were doing with the Ghost, where everything just became abstract shapes, but you will still connect it with an anthropomorphical figure, and you will identify yourself with the characters, so you don't lose the audience. You continue the journey, but you can really push everything in the design. So I am really excited to try to bring the best of both worlds. Like, there are so many amazing things that you can do in 3D, also that you can't in 2D. So I'm really hoping to bring all of that together in the next projects and see what happens. And I'm exploring stop motion right now, so I'm very, very excited about that as well. And let's see what happens there.
I could chat with you for hours, but I know you have to go, and so I want to thank you, Almu. This has been fantastic, and it's going to help so many people.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
These days, most studios do exclusively 3D animation, but Cartoon Saloon has stuck with 2D, embracing new technologies without losing what makes it special. Watch this video to discover how Cartoon Saloon has managed to retain their essence. I am Pietro, this is Riot for Animation, and I'll see you there.